Okay, here we go with Whiskey Rebellion. So, the last couple days in class, we've been looking at the Whiskey Rebellion, and this episode that tests the new federal government of the Constitution and its first president, George Washington. And so, let's just look through some of the important elements of and background of the Whiskey Rebellion. So, in class, and it's important that we know all of, and at least in this case, a couple of parts of Alexander Hamilton's financial plans, and one such part of it was the protective tariff. Now in class, and again now, we want to understand that a protective tariff is a tax on imported goods, right, on imports. So things that are being bought from people in this country that were made by someone else in another country, okay? So what does it mean to import? And I just basically copied and pasted a couple of parts from dictionary.com to kind of make things easy for us, which was to bring goods or services into a country from abroad for sale. So in other words, it might not be just what you're buying from another country, but what you're taking in to actually sell again. And this is going to carry a tax, okay? In this case, it's called a protective tariff. So a couple ways you can use that are illustrated here. So what is the purpose of a protective tariff? And it's actually in the name, right? Protective tariff protects something. So what does it protect? What does this tax protect? So this type of tax is meant to encourage American production, right? And it does this by protecting American business, right? So if there's a tariff, in other words, a tax on goods that are made in another country or another place outside the United States, you're more likely to buy the American product, okay? So it protects the American product, the American industry, right? Industry in America will be more successful because hopefully, right, the consumer will buy the American product and not a product made somewhere else. So it helps American industry and it brings in revenue for the federal government. So tariffs are a big part of why the American government, federal government in this case, right, and part of Alexander Hamilton's financial plans, and he is, right, the first and very successful Secretary of the Treasury. So he is bringing revenue to pay for things that the federal government needs. And we know one of those things is to pay the war debt from the American Revolution. So what does all this have to do with what we call the Whiskey Rebellions, okay? Alexander Hamilton's financial plans featured the protective tariff, right? But it wasn't enough. So there's actually other things that were needed to pay off the war debt. And one of the other things Alexander Hamilton uses, another part of his financial plans, was the excise tax. So again, from dictionary.com and a couple of additions made by me, excise taxes are taxes paid when purchases are made on a specific good, such as gasoline. We've used alcohol as an example, cigarettes as another example. This one will be the most important one, in this case for class, in this episode of the Whiskey Rebellion. Excise taxes are often included in the price of the product, and excise taxes tax the producer. So we've said in class, and we want to repeat right now, that the producer in America, for the most part, is the farmer. So most farmers, right, in the back country, we call the back country, and in this case the Piedmont region, in some cases we call it that too, but the backcountry, the mountainous areas, in this case specifically Pennsylvania, are farmers that grow things like corn. And in order to sell these things, it's actually easier to sell them in the form of whiskey. So it's not that everyone's drinking whiskey, it's not necessarily about that, but it's that the product itself is easier to trade and make money from if it's sold as whiskey, right? Or transported and then sold as whiskey, all right? So again, the occupation of most in this point, the job of most people, the producer is farmer, or is farming and are farmers, right, in America. So whiskey farmers turn a better, more and more efficient profit from whiskey, right? Farmers are so outraged that they actually threaten, in some cases, to secede. And this is the first time we've seen the word secede in our class at this point. And secede means to withdraw formally from membership in a federal union or alliance or a political or religious organization. So secede means to break away. Okay, it means that they, as a part of the state, or perhaps an entire state, we will see during the American Civil War, will actually break away from the Union. Okay, so this is a big threat. This is this is as bad as it gets, basically, because you're basically saying we're going to leave altogether. We've given up on this new government, and the government's really only existed at this point for 5 years. All right. So there's a couple lessons we need to make sure that we understand from the Whiskey Rebellion, and let's take it back to the protective tariff for a moment, right? Alexander Hamilton saw it as an opportunity, so did George Washington, right, for the federal government to show that it could enforce the law. Okay, in this case, the idea that these types of rebellions can take place, like they did under the Articles of Confederation with Shays' Rebellion up in Massachusetts, and when it does, it's going to be put down successfully, right? 15,000 militiamen were called up and forced the rebellion down. These militiamen were not just from Pennsylvania, right, like it had been under the Articles of Confederation. They're from places like Virginia, right, marching into Pennsylvania, as we've seen. Washington and Hamilton personally led the charge. All right, and again, this is symbolic, as we said in class, because it shows the might of the federal government, the presidency, the executive branch, and how it's able to maintain its strength under this new Constitution, unlike under the Articles, where there actually wasn't even a president, right? And they were not able to exert this kind of force when needed to suppress a rebellion like this. And basically, it just shows the federal government can keep order in this new country. So it showed off the federal government's power and its ability to deal with an issue that the Articles of Confederation government could not. And an example there, like an issue that they couldn't really deal with under the Articles, Americans that is, couldn't deal with under the Articles, was Shays' Rebellion. All right. So the protective tariff, right, the excise tax, the national bank, all these programs that are devised by Alexander Hamilton are all hurtful to the farmer. Okay, in many cases, right? The farmer sees the bank as a relationship, a corrupt relationship that exists between bankers, business elites, and the federal government, and one that they really can't, be a part of. The excise tax we've seen for the Whiskey Rebellion directly impacts them in a negative way, right? Because the tax is something that they really feel is valuable, maybe the most valuable to what they do to provide for their families. And the protective tariff, when you are in an industrial center where you're able to quickly or more easily able to get manufactured goods, that's one thing. But when you're on the farm and you're in a rural area and you're really relegated or limited, okay, to only getting goods from another country or this country, a protective tariff is going to limit competition. It's going to limit your ability to have a choice as to where you get things. And the farmer grows things. They don't necessarily make machinery and things like that they might need to grow things. So all of these things impact their way of life directly and can really hurt them. So, all right.